Welcome, people. Um, I have been trying to make this video now for days. A movie I've been wanting to review for a long time, and I am not kidding. Every time I have started recording, either my phone started ringing, somebody's needed me for something, and I just started again, and because I was trying to film it up at my flat, but my flat's opposite a pub and the party was going on across the road, which was interfering. So I'm back at my partner's house, and lo and behold, I start recording, and the old lady from next door has come round seeking, wanting my partner, who had literally just walked out the door a few moments before. Yeah, our next door neighbour, she's getting on a bit. Bless her cotton socks. She's getting a bit confused. So yet again, I was waking myself up into what I was gonna say and do, and like what. So anyway, yeah, got the old lady back round home and chilled her out a bit. So I am now gonna attempt, hopefully, to make this video about a film. I believe it was released in 1995, called Powder. Now, starts off, stormy night, pregnant woman, she goes into labour, and I believe she's struck by the lightning. And anyway, they managed to save the baby, but unfortunately the mother dies. And you know, they say like babies can detect the mother's feelings or whatever's going on, like, you know. Obviously the mother was in great distress and stuff like that. Like, anyway, they got the baby in an incubator and they bring the father in, and you know, he's just lost his wife or missus or whatever. You know, he's traumatized by that. And then he sees the child, and they explain, you know, that it's an albino baby, and the father, you know, greatly distressed, greatly upset, but he's like, "That's not my child. That's not my child," and he turns around and walks off, and that's the last you ever see of him. Anyway, skip forward many years, and the police are called to a farm out in the country somewhere. The guy who owns the farm, who ran the farm, the old bloke, has died, and they already said, basically, the coroner said natural causes. The sheriff has called this lady Jessie. Basically, they're saying that there's somebody there in the basement, and the locals have said, you know, it's some sort of monster or whatever. It's some sort of family secret that they keep him there or whatever. No one's ever really seen him and stuff. And this lady, Jessie, anyway, she runs like a children's home, Borstal type thing. Or people runaways or whatever, people with disadvantaged children. He couldn't think of anyone else to call. He calls her, she turns up. Anyway, together, you know, because they say he's down in the basement and hasn't come out. They go down together and try talking to him, and you know, they ask him his name, and he says, "My grandparents called me Powder." and then, cause it's all in darkness, but then when he shows his face, you know, you can tell straight away, you know, he's not no monster, but he's white, and not like white like me. I mean, he is white like white powder. I think that's probably why they give him the name Powder. Anyway, you know, she wants to talk to the lad, and you know, she says to the sheriff, "Can you give us a bit of time?" And she knows he's got loads of books, and she's talking to him. She finds out that basically he's been isolated on this farm all his life. That's all he's ever known. But you know, she's looking through the books and she picks one up, and cause she's asking him about school and education and whatnot. And he says, name a page. So she goes to the page of the book, and he recites, you know, the paragraph or whatever. Like, you know, clearly he is not a stupid lad. She asks him about school, if he'd like to go. He says yes, and convinces him to leave the farm and go with her to this borstal or hostel, wherever it is she's running. Anyway, as you can imagine, he's a bit different, obviously. He's as white as white powder. Got no hair on his body. He's got like red eyes. You know, obviously he stands out. And straight away, as you could imagine, like, seems to be a sort of bit of a theme with Americans, but you know, you got the alpha male there, and they're in the dining hall, and he decides to go over to confront Powder. Well, Jeremy. His real name's Jeremy. And, you know, it makes some remark like, you know, the new boy on the first day has to wear his spoon on his nose. So he says to one of his mates, Mitch, I think it is, or whatever, show him Mitch, like. So Mitch sort of gets a spoon, puts it on his nose. Like, they all think it's funny anyway. Jeremy picks up his spoon, starts rubbing it, puts it on the table, it stands up perfect. And then next thing, other people's spoons and forks and knives all start flying towards it and make a big pile of knives and spoons and forks. And obviously the bits of food that are on the other people's utensils are flying everywhere. And basically the main guy, the bully, we'll just call him the bully, doesn't like it. Generally, in the meantime, he thinks he's perhaps funny. I don't know. He's got no social skills, does he? He thinks he's just showing him a little trick or whatever. But yeah, most of the kids are like, "Wow, freak," and some guys like, "No, he weren't impressed." Anyway, yeah, Jeremy goes to school. First lesson that we see him in, science. Teacher, played by Jeff Goldblum. And they're on about electricity, and he's got some sort of primitive, what's it, contraption. Not a Tesla coil, but something similar to that, on about, you know, our negatives and positives and this and that. Anyway, Jeremy starts getting a bit hesitant by it, you know. And the next thing, you know, the electric given off by this machine gets stronger, and then a beam of electricity hits him, followed by a second beam, lifts him up into the air. Anyway, the teacher ends up smashing the contraption, like, you know. Jeremy's taken to hospital, and as basically uninjured. They said anybody else would be, that would kill him, that much electricity. And in the teacher's mind, he's like, well, this lad's special. Yeah, and at some point they're getting to do an IQ test, and they say basically his IQ is off the chart. The teacher at some point is saying, this lad's special. He's so in touch with whatever. He's like another evolution of man, basically. But yeah, still at the hostel, the Borstal, he's not fitting in. He gets friendly with one of the girls in his class. She sort of finds him quite interesting. Anyway, there's another bit where the sergeant, his deputy, is like, you could say, typical, loves his guns, loves his hunting, stuff like that. And they're out on some whatever, they take him out somewhere in the woods, and Jeremy's off on his own, and he has like these lizards that he sort of attracts to him, and like he has a conversation with the girl, saying about how he can hear people's inner thoughts, or because basically we're all we've got like our neurons firing all the time, electricity, and I suppose with him being born out in the way he was, and he can conduct electricity, he can sort of tap into that. But yeah, basically, the kids come along, start interfering with him again. Like I say, there's the guy, I just named him the bully, thinks he's alpha male or whatever, and again has another confrontation with Jeremy, and then he hears shots fired. They all go running, and the deputy guy anyway has shot a deer. And he's saying to the kids, yes, that's how you do it, kids. You shot it in just the right place. He hasn't killed it, but he's paralysed it. Anyway, Jeremy goes over and puts one hand on the deer. And then with his other hand, because the deputy comes over, he grabs his hand. And he somehow reads the thoughts of the deer. The deer that's been shot, now paralysed, dying. And is able to transmit it through him into the deputy. And as you could imagine, it really screws with the deputy's mind, really, really freaks him out. The other kids pull him off, and the deputy's like, screaming like a little girl. Like, anyway, as a result of that, Jeremy does one. He doesn't fit in. Doesn't want to go back to the Borstal. He just wants to go home. And at some point, the sheriff, they find Jeremy and say, "Look, son, we need to talk about this. I can't let you go." And it turns out that the sheriff's estranged from his son. They haven't spoken in years. Something went on and they haven't spoken. And the sheriff's wife is basically, she's dying. She's been ill for a long time. And the same, they don't know why, but she's refusing to die. Right? Now, when the sheriff talks to his deputy about, about him not carrying a gun and stuff like this, you can't work as my deputy and not carry a gun and stuff. And he says, I don't know what that lad did, but I felt everything that deer felt. It was like he transferred what it was thinking straight to me. I must say, there's two bits in this film that remind me of that people will relate to two other films, or at least one other film, where you got John Coffey and the Green Mile. How he's able to take one man's pain and give it to another, or take someone's pain away. And it's a similar thing with Jeremy. Basically, he gets Jeremy to go and speak to his wife. So he touches his wife, and he can tap into her thoughts and basically speaks for her and says she will not die until he makes good with his son. And so forth. And then, obviously, hearing that, the sheriff, his son happens to turn up, and he just puts his arms around him. His wife dies, happy, and, all around, obviously she's died, it's sad, but he's fulfilled a wish, made up with his son, that's a good thing. And anyway, Jeremy is convinced to go back to the boar stall, basically. And yet again, the alpha male, the bully guy, takes his hat off him. And, he's saying, take it back, see if you can take it back. And at some point, he has hold of him. And then he starts reciting stuff. Like I say, he can read people's minds, the thoughts, and he starts reciting to this lad that basically what his dad used to do to him, bully him in this way. And for a moment, it sort of shocks the bully, and sort of you think it's going to put him in his place, but instead realising, he's in front of all his mates, he does the opposite, and instead starts bullying Jeremy even more. And you take him outside and basically try and humiliate him, and they strip him and push him into a puddle, and Jeremy gives off some sort of like energy blast, knocks them all on their asses, and the main bully anyway isn't breathing, and even though he's just been bullying Jeremy and humiliating him, Jeremy goes and starts like I can't think of it, like electrolysis or something, like zapping him like the doctors do, and eventually gets his heart going again, saves his life. But yeah, after that, that's it. He's done with, and Jeremy just he goes, and the lads are saying, "You freak, get out of here," And so Jeremy does one, and it's pretty obvious he's going. He just wants to go home, try to get that once for, and he gets home, and basically the lady Jessie turns up. The teacher turns up. I can't remember his name. Played by Jeff Goldblum. Turns up. The sheriff turns up, as well as I think the deputy's there, and they're saying, boy, you need to come with us and stuff. And there's a storm coming, and Jeremy's like, I don't belong anywhere else but here, sort of thing. And the storm's getting more. Anyway, he's like, I'm not coming with yous. And like, the storm's really building up. And he starts running. And they're chasing him for a bit. And then you see lightning coming down, connecting with Jeremy and stuff. And he keeps running. And then zoom, he is zapped up into the heavens, basically ascended into pure energy, and the other people that were chasing him stopped, and they stand around, and they're sort of like half smiling, half surprised, half bewildered. But yeah, Jeremy has gone to another plane, a better place of existence. He has touched all our lives in like many ways, and that was the thing that got me about this movie, was the interaction between people, how people are, differences and strangeness, and like just so much we don't understand. And I think this film is a wonderful example of relationships on many different levels, relationships, emotions, and you call it science fiction. This is why I had a hard time thinking about how to review this, so I just basically probably made it did a bad example of telling you the story. I mean, there's so much more to it than what I've relayed here, but yeah, how there's a great lesson in the meaning of life here. I really do. I think it's one of the films that everybody should watch at least once. Take from it what you will, but at the end of the day, it's a film about relationships and people and their emotions, and how we could all become better to each other. Anyway, people, that's my review of the film Powder. Thank you for listening. If you've listened this long, it's much longer than what I'd normally ramble on. But if you like this sort of thing, me doing these reviews of these films from a few decades ago, films that I grew up watching that had an impact on me and my life and whatnot. Yeah, give us a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate your subscription. Ring that bell, ding dong. And yeah, we should all treat each other with love and respect and try and see the best in each other that we possibly can. Thank you very much for listening. Cheerio.